Oh, Garfield, what days won't you hate? Oh, good, you're here. I've been waiting for hours. I'm Josh Crowley, for now. Hey, does it seem strange to anyone else to declare victors for elections while there are still hours worth of people left in lines at overloaded precincts? And am I just being paranoid, or does it seem even stranger that all these overloaded precincts happen to be in areas that tend to vote more progressively, like colleges in non-white neighborhoods? And am I out of my fucking mind, or is it especially strange that the news has been reporting on voting demographics while there are still people waiting in line to vote? A bunch of empty teeth over the last couple weeks have crammed their dopey faces up against the insides of our TV screens to tell us all about how the youth aren't showing up to vote for Bernie. But then if you check Twitter, it's been packed full of photos of young people at colleges still waiting in line to vote at like midnight. So why would the news report like this? At best, it seems like they're just really bad at their journalism jobs. At worst, it seems like they're deliberately trying to weave a narrative. Neither of these options looks especially good for them, but when you examine the whole picture, it's clearly deliberate. It's no secret that the mainstream media has had it in for Bernie since 2016. Remember the leaked emails from the DNC to online reporters telling them to take him down? If you think all those intentions just disappeared after that, especially with him doing so well this time around, then I have a bridge to sell you. It's the bridge of your nose. That's right. I got your nose. You can have it back, but only if you PayPal me $10. But like I said, either way, it looks bad for them. Imagine if you ported this to any other job. Like if someone was working on your car and they called you up and they said it was done, but when you got there, the whole thing was still mostly in pieces across the garage. And you were like, why did you say this was done? And they said, because it is done. And you said, but it's clearly not. And they said, it's a shame this car will never have wheels. And you said, the wheels are right there against the wall. And they said, can't put the wheels on now, your car is finished. There just aren't any wheels. Or something stupid like that. Again, whenever my analogies sound dumb, it's because the things they're representing are dumb. Every election, we throw ourselves into an uproar over how the Republicans are suppressing voters in more progressive areas, but then mysteriously, nothing ever gets done about it. Is it any wonder that voter suppression is just as alive as ever when the people we're trusting to do something to stop it are using the exact same tactics to stifle progressives in their own party? I mean, did you notice that the same Democrats who get so publicly angry about voter suppression in the general election are mum about those same suppression tactics in the primary? And you can port this logic around a little to solve some more mysteries, too. Think of some issue you care about that you're frustrated hasn't been fixed in years, and then just fill in the blank. Why don't Democrats do something about whatever? The answer is always because they themselves personally benefit from not doing anything about it. The same goes for Republicans, by the way, in case you thought I was letting them off the hook. The reason I focus on the ways Democrats are failing us is because we might actually be able to do something about it. And ultimately, if you pull the masks off both these situations Scooby-Doo style, the underlying villain is old man capitalism. But I'll get to that in a future video. I've got tons of content and ideas and thoughts, folks, so please hit that subscribe button and the bell and the like button and whatever. Get in on the ground floor of what's sure to become an internet phenomenon. Tell your friends about me before they tell you so that you can look like the one who's ahead of all the trends. Anyway, what's important to recognize is that voter suppression isn't just overloading precincts and using antiquated technology and forcing people to stand in line for hours to vote. It's also manufacturing the narrative surrounding it. The news certainly isn't going to report on any of this because they're part of the propaganda effort themselves. Pete Buttigieg, that can't be right. Jingle. Pete Baba Yaga? Dee Dee Mega Doo Doo. Never would have been able to declare premature victory in Iowa before all the votes had been counted and while there were still tons of irregularities if the media hadn't been complicit in amplifying that message. Similarly, when delegates are distributed proportionally within a state, framing getting a majority of delegates as winning the state is an act of psychological manipulation. Pete Buttigieg won Iowa, but that's because he got one more delegate than Bernie Sanders. If you had a box of 12 cookies and you ate 7 cookies and your friend ate 5, who ate the box of cookies? Right now, they're framing Biden as the clear victor with a delegate lead of only around 150 in a contest where there are still more than 2,000 left to distribute. It's a deliberate attempt to manufacture consent. But already, many liberals online are running with the Biden already won narrative, calling for Bernie to drop out and leave Biden uncontested. What's especially sinister, though, is when infrastructural suppression and propaganda work hand in hand in real time. If there are voters standing in line long after precincts close due to suppression efforts by the Democrats, if people are checking the news and seeing that the state has been called for Biden, a lot of people are going to go, fuck it, what's the point, and head home, even though their vote could still make a huge difference in terms of proportional delegates. And if you're paying close attention, you'll notice something especially devious, early pieces of a long-term cover-your-ass strategy for this fall. See, it's not just the outcomes they're releasing early, it's the demographics as well. So even though there are like 200 people, likely Sanders voters, still waiting in line at a single university, the news reports that Biden likely won the state and that the youth turnout is down. Ultimately, Ultimately, those numbers will probably increase a bit once the dust settles, but people will remember the artificially deflated numbers, which will probably never be corrected by the media anyway. Of course, the people who eventually just said fuck it and went home because they saw the state called for Biden won't be counted at all. But ultimately, the biggest suppression comes from the fact that voting is a bit of a luxury. The fact that millennials are the first generation in a long time to be worse off than our parents has a lot of downstream effects. As I said in another video, we make voting as difficult as possible here without involving some sort of testing prerequisite or having to solve logic puzzles or finish American Gladiator obstacle courses. And if you're a single mother working 60 hours a week, the last thing you'll be able to do is stand in line for hours voting, if your precinct is even still open once you finally get through with your 12-hour workday. This is by far the most widespread and insidious form of voter suppression, making it so that people, especially younger people and especially younger people in marginalized groups, are effectively unable to vote because their lives and schedules on voting day simply cannot accommodate voting. Older generations love mocking younger generations for not voting. Hey, here's an idea. If you want Bernie to win, maybe show up to vote. So much for that big youth turnout everyone predicted. You can't just tweet, you have to vote too, you know. But if we make it so that voting takes hours and people's jobs are inflexible and their economic situations are such that they can't afford to jeopardize them, then how in the fuck are young people supposed to vote? Sure, there is absentee voting, but that's not necessarily available to everyone. And, well, there are a lot of problems with absentee ballots, like how sometimes they just don't end up counted at all. Ultimately, ending voter suppression doesn't just mean opening more precincts or staffing them better. It has to be an across-the-board effort to ensure that voting is accessible to everyone and that we aren't actively alienating people from it. Until then, it's a little unfair to scold or condemn voters for not voting. It'll be a lot more effective to recognize that the system itself is inherently flawed and figure out how to fix it. In the meantime, please stop amplifying the media's narratives to try and steer the outcome of the election. You don't have to be a machine the wealthy use to manufacture other people's consent. Oh, and don't forget, I've still got your nose. Anyway, if you enjoy my content, please subscribe and recommend it to your friends. If you hate it, please recommend it to your enemies. Thank you very much for watching. I know we have precious few moments on this planet, and I appreciate that you chose to spend some with me. Until next time, be seeing you. Progressively, like publicly angry. Why don't Democrats? In case you thought I was leaving. What's especially sinister, and if you're paying close attention, and if you're paying, jobs are inflexible and their economic situations are. I shouldn't scratch my face while I'm fucking doing this video. Sure, there's absentee voting, but that's not machine the wealthy use to please stop. Bump. Similarly, when delegates are distributed. What do you want, bud? Can you stop? What are you doing? Why do you keep going around and around in circles? Why are you knocking stuff down? Cats are going nuts. Even still open once you finally get done with your 12-hour workday. Ultimately, ending voter suppression doesn't just mean opening more precincts or staffing them better. Ultimately, ending voter suppression... Hello. I'm gonna brush you again soon. You like being brushed. I'll just do a video where I'm brushing you. Alright, bud, you gotta get down. Alright, I love you. Covered in cat hair now. Tell your friends about me before they tell me. They tell me about you.